Hello and welcome back to Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for. My name is Margaret Dennis. I am a women's life empowerment and holistic grief coach, and I work primarily with women who've been through grief and trauma and help them to heal and move forward. And today I'm very honored to have a friend of mine, Gaby, with us to talk about perimenopause and menopause and anxiety and all that good stuff and the grief that goes along with it. So, Gaby, welcome today. Very excited that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Margaret. I'm excited to be here too.
Oh, me too. And this is a very hot topic right now. And I think a lot of our listeners are going to really benefit from today's chat. So before we
Yeah.
dive in and we let Gaby take over, because she's got so much amazing information to share with us today, just going to read her bio because I haven't memorized it. I will be reading her bio so you know who we're talking to today. All right. So Gaby is a perimenopause anxiety coach and certified mindfulness teacher with years of experience helping women break free from anxiety and reconnect with their inner calm. As the founder of GY Holistic Health and creator of the Ease into Peace and Inner Glow tribe memberships, she supports women navigating the emotional roller coaster of perimenopause with compassion, clarity, and proven tools for lasting change. Drawing from her background in holistic nutrition, Gaby blends hormone focused nutrition with mindfulness and a deep respect for the mind body spirit connection. Her work is grounded in both science and soul, offering practical strategies for nervous system regulation, balanced living, and emotional resilience. Before stepping into this role, Gaby spent nearly a decade in the nonprofit world, supporting immigrant families in areas like parenting, literacy, and emotional well being. Her personal journey through anxiety, stress, and chronic health challenges fuels her mission to help women skip the exhausting trial and error phase and fast track their way to feeling grounded, empowered, and at peace. Today, Gaby's work is rooted in one simple truth: you don't have to do this alone. She's here to walk with you every step of the way as you come home to yourself and create a life that feels good from the inside out. Wow. Welcome, Gaby. That sounds amazing. I love that. Excuse me one
Thank
second.
you. Yeah.
Of course,
I'll
now
take
I'm
a sip
talking.
too.
Mhm. Mm. Yes, that is amazing. You have done so much. And the women, oh my goodness, they must just absolutely adore working with you. So,
And
yeah.
and
So
I
tell us.
am.
Yeah. So tell us, tell everyone who's listening what inspired you to specialize in anxiety and nutrition for women, specifically in perimenopause, and how does your personal journey really shape your approach?
Yeah. So honestly, it came from living it. But before that, my interest in nutrition started when I was studying sociology in university, and I came across a course called the sociology of health and illness, and I fell in love with it. So I quickly, like after that, I certified myself as a health coach, but didn't do anything with it for a while. So mostly it's from living it, after I had my daughter, which was, I live in Canada now. I was living in Texas before. And after having my daughter, that's when I feel like it really started because everything's kind of like, maybe just a regular stress and I wasn't really aware. But when you have a child, a lot of things come up. And I felt like I was walking with a 50-pound weight on my chest.
Mm,
Um, Anxiety, crying spells, hormone chaos, you name it, I had it. I think that especially after you give birth, these things tend to come up. So
mhm,
I tried many things. I joined Facebook groups for moms. I went to programs at the library for, those baby and me
mhm,
sort of classes. I was going out for walks, Googling my symptoms too, because I had horrible heartburn. And I was comforting myself with food. So I was doing a lot of emotional eating
mhm.
and I was crying almost daily. Like
Oh,
I
as a
felt
new
better.
mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that a
Yes.
lot of moms can relate to that, right? But
Oh, yes.
nothing
Mm,
really helped until I learned how interconnected everything was. My nervous system, and this is why I do nervous system work as well, but also blood sugar, hormones, my gut, which all influenced how I was feeling and how I was thinking.
mhm,
So yeah, like once I started to address all of that through nutrition, so addressing the anxiety through nutrition, mindfulness, and therapies like acupuncture. I am a huge fan of modalities like acupuncture because they can give you like instant relief.
Mm-hmm.
And so that feels amazing.
Right.
So, yeah.
So how come perimenopause then? Like you had, it sounds like you had such an incredible personal experience with the idea of anxiety and all the hormones and the things, almost like a preemptive for perimenopause and menopause, right? It's like you go
Yeah.
through it once when you give birth, and then guess what? We're gonna just do it
Yeah,
all again.
exactly. So perimenopause can start as early as your mid 30s. And I had my daughter when I was about 33.
Okay.
So a few years after that, years that followed that were when the mess started. So I also noticed that there was a huge gap in support during
Mm-hmm.
perimenopause as I started to approach it, as I started to get closer. And I think for me, probably started a little bit sooner because my own mother went through menopause at like 44, 45.
Okay.
And usually there's a link between, your mother and when you might go through it. So there's no surprise that I started experiencing symptoms, earlier.
Right.
But also it was, also giving birth. But also, unfortunately, doctors are not really talking about this that much. They tend to just tell women, oh, it's just stress, or it's just a part of life you have to go through, or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even put them on birth control for any symptoms that they may be having. But no one's talking about the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical messiness of this time. And
Mm-hmm.
I even surveyed women in my free group, and so many of them said that they have been dismissed by their doctors or not taken seriously. So I
Mm-hmm.
built my work around helping women feel grounded, empowered, and just without the trial and error that I had to go through. Hopefully,
Yeah.
that is my goal. Depends when I catch them.
Right. Because we'll start our journey. We may not even know we started, right?
Mhm.
We might just start noticing the little ones. So, can you explain the connection between your hormone health, your blood sugar balance, and anxiety during perimenopause? Because you mentioned those things as you were talking about your own experience. I'm like curious, how do all of those go together?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it makes a huge difference. And during perimenopause, our estrogen and progesterone levels begin to fluctuate. And I've heard from other health experts talk about it like it's like going through puberty in reverse. I don't know if you've heard of this before.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Yeah, so which impacts everything, right? From brain chemistry to stress response to even how we metabolize food. And it's not just about hormones, it's about how the whole system works. So when blood sugar is all over the place because of either too much caffeine or skipping meals, this triggers first adrenaline and then follows cortisol. And then when cortisol goes up, then that triggers the production of glucose by your liver. And then blood sugar elevates. So people sometimes think like, oh, I'm especially when cutting back on calories, I'm just going to skip a meal. It's actually the worst thing you can do. And we'll talk about that, later on. But
Mm. Oh,
I
wow.
wanted to say that, this is what makes us feel anxious, edgy, wired, and exhausted because the blood sugar goes up, and then we have that crash.
Okay, so things are starting to come into alignment for me. Like I'm a big coffee drinker in the morning. I'll have 2 or 3 cups in the morning. I may not have breakfast or something to eat until noon. And yeah, okay. I think
It's
I will be
important.
changed.
Yeah, and
I will be. I might be looking at how I'm eating and my oh my goodness, I could be your test subject, I think. Yes, I will be definitely adjusting those.
yeah, and I
I
think
did.
you're not
Yeah,
alone in that. I think a lot of
no.
women, they don't realize that stable blood sugar leads to more stable mood and energy. And
Hmm.
it's also very soothing to the nervous system. It supports hormone health and it sends an important message to the body that you're safe. I'm
Yes.
safe. Because when all of
Yeah.
that is happening, that inside of us, then the nervous system is like, what's happening? Why am I not getting fuel? Now I
My
have to produce
goodness.
glucose because you need energy.
I had no idea the blood sugar was related to the anxiety. That's a new thing for me. I knew all of these things were important, but thank you for putting that connection together for me because I had never had it explained like that. So thank you. Very helpful. And and a little bit more of an understanding as to why the change is important. So thanks for that. Oh, wow. So
Okay.
what role are you finding that nutrition plays in managing your anxiety, especially for women in perimenopause? Like, are there common dietary mistakes that you see, like what I do with coffee and not eating? Like, what, tell us a little bit more about how your nutrition can help support you.
Yeah, so nutrition is one of the foundational pillars of hormone health and just overall well-being. And what we eat isn't just fuel, it's information. And this is how I like to explain it because sometimes we just think, oh, food is fuel, but it's actually information too. And this is really important when it comes to hormones. Every bite that you take sends a message to your hormones and your gut and your brain. So during perimenopause, when our body becomes a little less forgiving because in our 20s we can eat however we want and we're fine, right? We're not faced by it. Then those messages matter more than ever. And so if we see it like that, so some of the most common patterns that I see is skipping meals, especially breakfast. I think that's usually the one because it just makes life easier if I don't have to have breakfast in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Relying on caffeine just to function, and also not getting enough protein and healthy fats. And another big one is chronic dieting or undereating.
Okay.
And this spikes cortisol and makes anxiety worse, not better. So
Okay.
my approach isn't about restriction, it's about nourishment. And when we give the body what it truly needs, then the mind starts to exhale. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when healing becomes possible. It's like learning to speak the language of the hormones.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned having more protein and healthy fats. Can you give me an
Yes.
example of like what would you suggest be like a day? I know I'm kind of throwing this out here for you right now,
That's
but
fine.
if people were going to like for me who does not eat well, I will be honest, I put it out there. I grab what I can in the kitchen. I'm busy all the time and I will take time on occasion to actually make a meal, but I've never really I've heard about the things that are healthy and I try and incorporate those into my diet, but really being intentional about what I put in my mouth, I haven't been.
Okay.
And I through this conversation, there's a lot of light bulbs going off, I'll tell you. I'm like, okay, well, I knew nutrition was important, but hearing it in this way is also helping. So what would be like the top 5 foods you would recommend people eat? Do you have a top
So, I mean,
five or just do you have a
I
depending?
would say it depends because we're all bio-individual, right? So and then also
Mm-hmm.
some people have more plant-based diet. So if you're more plant-based, then eating things like tofu and beans would be your go-to for protein. But if you eat meats, then I would say if you're eating beef, like grass-fed is always going to be best.
Mm-hmm.
Grass-fed, organic. The same with chicken, with fish like salmon, for example. Wild caught is going to be better than farmed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, eggs, even cheese is okay, in moderation. I think sometimes I tend to overdo it with cheese. I am addicted to cheese.
Yes.
I will admit that. And that's not really considered a healthy fat. Healthy fat would be more like, avocados, maybe cooking with coconut oil, for example, having nuts and seeds, things like that.
Okay.
And yeah, I would say oils is also, important to pay attention to because I think a lot of us don't really know that, cooking with like oils that are either seed oils or vegetable oils are actually inflammatory to the body. So
Mm,
sticking with olive oil, if you're not cooking at a high temperature, avocado oil or coconut oil if you're going to cook at a higher temperature. But yeah, those would
okay.
give you like
That's
healthy fat.
amazing. So it's basically setting your body up to be able to handle whatever's coming at it, whether it's the hormone changes, life circumstances, things like that, which then leads me into my next question for you. If we've now set this really great base or grounding for your body being ready for stuff. So how
Mhm.
can women begin to process this emotional weight of identity shifts, changing roles and unmet expectations during many perimenopause? Because that comes with so like a woman, like I'm a woman going through perimenopause menopause right now too,
Mhm.
and yeah, your identity, you're like, who am I now? Like, what is my body doing? It's doing all these crazy things. And your roles change, right? Your kids are getting older. You're maybe, leaving the end of your career, or you're changing what you're doing. And then all these expectations about what life was supposed to be like and what you're supposed to be like, how your body's supposed to behave. Like, how do you
Mm-hmm.
process all of that? There's a lot of grief involved in this particular, they call it the change of life, or whatever. I
Yeah.
think it I had somebody say to me the other day that it was, we were literally as women shedding our skins and stepping into who we
Mhm.
actually are.
I love
Like,
that.
because it's our most of our life has been spent caring for others, whether it's our children, our partner, our family, which is
Absolutely.
just the way it is, right? That's how we
Mhm.
are. But then we have, and very rarely do we spend a whole lot of time on ourselves. And
Yeah.
this then becomes that space where you can start to step into who you are. But
Yeah.
in that, there is a lot of grief, like as we're leaving being able to have children, right? We're no longer
Mhm.
fertile, right? Our
Yeah.
relationships may change, who we feel we are change, our body's changing. There's all this grief. So
Absolutely.
so can you speak to that, about how we can process all this emotional stuff that goes on with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's such an important question, Margaret, and I think that you have got it all. I mean, all the things that you mentioned were things that I would have said. I think that midlife can feel like a silent awakening, meaning it can sneak up on you, or sometimes it's like a rude awakening. It's like, oh my God, what just happened, right? Especially
Right.
if you're experiencing all these like different symptoms, but we find ourselves grieving, like you said, right? Not just what's behind us, but the version of ourselves that we thought we would be by now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So because roles begin to shift. Kids grow up. Mine's only 8.5. And every time I see a baby picture of her, a memory, something pops up on my phone or on Facebook, I still feel that tug in my heart, that I miss that tiny version of her. So that is its own type of grieving too, like you said, right? Like kids growing up and not being able to have any more children. I mean, I think maybe I still could, but I don't try because I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But also careers can plateau. And I feel like that's in a way what happened to me, or they can change course completely. And
Mm-hmm.
I made a big shift at 39. So I was doing health coaching on the side of my job. And at 39, I decided to quit my job
Mm-hmm.
entirely. And thankfully, we were in a position that we were able to do that. And so I decided to dive fully into coaching. But aside from that, also relationships evolve. Some
Mm-hmm.
friends like grow distant, and not because that we don't like each other anymore. It's just because our lifestyles just don't match, no longer align in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's our body too, which can feel unfamiliar, right? I think back to the days when I had like endless energy. I could work out twice a day, and now and still feel strong, not feel tired after that. And that version of me feels far away now. Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel like the same anymore. So the first step I would say would be to acknowledge that grief. Acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
it, because it isn't just about hormones, it's about identity. And that's what you were saying earlier, why I said everything you said. Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's an identity shift, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it takes time to get into that. And I think that also mindfulness gives us a way to sit with these emotions. I know that you're
Mm-hmm.
big on journaling too, Margaret, and I
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great outlet as well.
Yeah.
But also to be able to witness these emotions without rushing, without judging. And
Mm-hmm.
as we do that, then we can start to create some space as well, emotional space, spiritual space, and even physical. Just room to reconnect with the woman that we are becoming.
Mm-hmm. and
And
to grieve the one that we're leaving behind, but also understanding that the woman that we were is still part of us,
yes.
right? It's an integration of all of the versions of us that we've been, sort of culminating,
Hmm.
right? And then this wise woman, like, I know they have like in it's like maiden mother crone. And I always hated the word crone because all I could picture was the old witch in Snow White with the
Yeah.
cane and the ugly face. And I'm like, no, because crone is like we're stepping into our wise years. We have so much wisdom that we've gained over our lifetime in like mental, like intellectual wisdom, emotional wisdom, social wisdom, that we finally get to a place of, and this is what I'm really loving about this age,
Mhm.
is I'm really focused on what's important to me, and
Mhm.
everything else I'm shedding. And it's very freeing of being able to do that. But it's also that metamorphosis, right? It's like the cocoon, you're turning into a butterfly. Well, we're doing that
Mhm.
again, right? We did it as kids turning into teenagers and hitting puberty. And now we're doing it again. We have this other metamorphosis where we're turning into, like, I would say maybe this time we're turning into the phoenix, right? Because as a
Yes, I
woman in
love
their
that.
50s, we've got this like energy and power that is this strong sense of who we are. Like, I think this is, this is a, what's the word?
Like
Of
a
course, menopause, you
confidence.
can't
Yeah.
remember, right? Confidence,
Yeah, there's that too.
absolutely. There's the
Mhm.
brain farts. But it's that whole idea of awakening to who you really are, and stepping into this new version of you that is so much more of you, right? And it's
Mhm.
really that authenticity and being able to really be true to who you are. But there is a lot of grief that comes along with that. And as we've already talked about, right, the change in our bodies, the change in our thought processes. Like, I don't know about how many other people who are listening, but I don't know how many times I've walked into a room going, I literally knew 2 seconds ago why I was coming in here. And now I'm standing in this room. I don't know what's going on. Yes,
Yes.
it's kind of like having mommy brain when you're a brand new mom, but it's
Mhm.
also happens to me all the time. I have sticky notes everywhere in my office, because if I don't write it down in that moment, it'll be like weeks and I'll be like, "Oh,
Before it
yes,
comes
I
back.
was supposed to do that." And it's just part of the process, but then, there's that grief of, am I letting people down because I can't perform the way I used to? I can't handle stress the way that I used to. I am
Mhm.
definitely learning that rest is so important. It's important anyway, but through this particular transition,
Oh yeah, even more
holy
so because it's time to slow
macaroni.
down.
It is. It is. Like, I get teased all the time. Like, I go to bed, I don't know, 9:30, quarter to 10, which doesn't seem all like,
That's not
for
bad.
some people that's late, but I get teased that I'm going to bed with like the same time as toddlers. And I'm like, I don't know what time you put your toddler to bed, but mine was in bed by 7. So I would love to go to bed at 7. There are some nights, I'll be honest, I'm like, I'm done. I need to go to bed at 7. But it's
Mhm.
all this transition into, I used to be able to, be up all night and
Oh yeah,
socialize and no,
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 not me either.
can't
I'm
do
like,
that
no, I need my
anymore.
sleep.
Yeah, I am so much into the version of myself that's really happy to stay home with my pajamas and a cup of tea and a good book. And yeah, you guys have fun at the pub. Have a really great time. I'm gonna be home here
Yes.
just relaxing, because everything seems like so much more of an effort. Do you find that? Like, and the women
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
work with, it's
absolutely.
just
Yeah.
so much more to try and plan and do and have the energy and the enthusiasm for it.
Yeah. And I
So
think
not that
that
we
also,
do. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say about the slowing down. Like, it's not a slowing down like, oh, we're getting old, we're slowing down.
Yeah.
It's actually a slowing down to be more present and to be
Mm.
more connected.
Hmm.
This is how I'd like to see it because it's not like, oh, I'm just so slow, I can't go at the same speed as a young person. It's not that. It's like now I'm paying attention. When
Hmm.
we're young, I feel like we just kind of zoom through life and then
Yep.
we're just kind of like, oh, like didn't even see that. But now we're more intentional. We live life with more intention and we pay attention to what's in front of us and we
Oh, I
enjoy
love
it.
that. I love that perspective. Oh, I'm definitely borrowing that again. Definitely going to borrow that.
Yeah, go
I
for
love
it.
that, living with more intention and presence. And
Yeah.
that is really important too when you're figuring out who you are in this
Hmm.
version, in this time of your life. Who are you now? Who do you want to be? And really sitting
Hmm.
with that, and the mindfulness would totally help with that. And when you've got this great nutritional platform that you're building on, and put all of that in alignment, that is going to be amazing. So I have
Yeah.
one last question for you before we sign off from today. But why do you think perimenopause is such a spiritually significant time for women, and how can we honor that transition instead of really fearing it?
I think because it cracks us open, you know? And perimenopause is like a sacred fire that we go through. It, like you were saying earlier too, Margaret, it burns away everything that is no longer true so that we
Mm-hmm.
can reclaim what is, right? Our power, our truth, our voice. This is a time when we do that because I hear so many women in their 40s and 50s saying how they, and even their 60s, from my own mother, right? Saying that, I don't really care what people think anymore. And they're more blunt, right? They care less
Mm-hmm.
about what others think. And it's not just talk.
No, no.
This season really invites us to be more ourselves and that
Mm-hmm.
we have ever dared to be without the old fear of, judgment holding us back.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's not just a biological shift, like I said, it's also a spiritual one. It's a homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said about the phoenix because it feels like that's what we were, meant to be in the end. And
Mm-hmm.
also, after years, maybe decades of caregiving, achieving, and people pleasing, we can lose touch with our own desires, our
Mm-hmm.
intuition, our joy. And I would say, but in this point in life, we've lived enough to know what truly matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the urge to please starts to fade if we
Yes.
let it, because sometimes we can hold on to that too. We
Yes.
can, we can hold on to that identity. But when we stop resisting and we start listening, perimenopause and menopause can become a rite of passage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we become more discerning, more aligned, more unapologetically ourselves. And, to walk this path with grace, we need more than just willpower. It's not just like I'm going to get through it. We need community. We also need self-compassion and practices that help us slow down and reconnect with that inner wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds beautiful. And I think it's really, really important to be able to reconnect and do the slowing down bit because it allows you to go through this process present, intentionally, allows you from a grief perspective to work through those feelings and emotions that come up and to honor them and let them flow through you as well because and without judgment, we are going to feel all kinds of things emotionally. We're going to be angry, frustrated, sad, you know, short and snappy, and we're going to feel so many different emotions. And some of us are like truly elated, like, woohoo, no more periods.
Yes.
Yay. Like I think that's probably the best part about all of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's yay, I don't have to worry about it. But oh, okay, that's kind of the ending
Mhm.
of that phase, and it's kind of a twofold. And so you may
Yeah.
feel different emotions coming up, like some would be happy but at the same time you're a little sad, and so sometimes it gets really confusing, like why am I feeling all of these things and why am I
Mhm.
feeling like I'm back in a teenager body with my emotions, because one minute I'm laughing and the next I'm on the floor sobbing, and then I'm back up and I'm okay, and then I'm making dinner, and then I'm it's like all this happened in less than 30
Yes.
seconds and you're just like ah.
Confused.
Yes. And I think too, for the people around you, like your partner, your family, your kids who are seeing you and witnessing this, their support is so important as well. And their
Mhm.
understanding, because there's so much that happens on the hormonal level and the transition level. We have zero control over. It's just our body's doing what it was made to do.
Yeah.
And we do turn into different people.
We do. And I mean, we
And
can improve what's
yes.
happening, right? But in
Mm-hmm.
some cases, we may not be able to completely remove it. So I think it's true having that support from family and also have an open line of communication, like, hey, I'm going through this, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe even sharing some education with them so that they
Mm-hmm.
understand what you're going through.
Yes.
Um, it's super important. I know that when my mom was going through it, it just seemed like a very scary thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny because now it seems like she doesn't remember it. And
Okay.
she goes like, "Oh, it wasn't bad." And I said, like, for real?
Yeah.
Like, you don't remember? But that's also another reason why I was kind of interested in this because I was like, I don't want to go through it like that. And
No.
and then I see now that I have a daughter, right? And for those of us, raising daughters, the journey becomes even more meaningful because
Mm-hmm.
when we walk through that perimenopause with awareness and
Mm-hmm.
self-respect and honesty, we're modeling something powerful, right? Because our
Yes.
kids are watching, or maybe there's, young girls in your life that look up to you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we're showing them that it isn't something to dread or to fear, but it's something, to honor.
Mm-hmm.
And and that it's a natural, beautiful part of a woman's life, a time of reclamation, not decline. So we
Yes.
get to rewrite that narrative, not just for ourselves, but also for the next generation. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's exactly what you do too with
That's
Unshakable
beautiful.
Me. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. I love that. Well, I we're gonna sign off in just a second. Did you want to share with everybody the lovely free gift that you're going to offer everybody if they wanted to?
Yeah,
And I will put the information in the show notes below, so don't worry, you don't have to write
perfect.
it down. We'll make sure it's all there that people can access. So can you share with us what that is?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a 30-day anxiety breakthrough planner that walks you week by week and day by day through different practices and things that you can do to help yourself. In addition to that, I have a free Facebook group that goes along with the planner. So you download the planner and then you join the group. And I've recently just done this with the free group. I've actually changed it so that we are more of a peer-led group, but also
Mm-hmm.
focusing around the planner so that we can get through it together and actually get results and get transformation. So the link will be in the show notes,
Mm-hmm.
as Margaret said, and you can also go to my website, gyholistichealth.com, and you can download it there if you'd like. But I think it'll be linked in the show notes. So,
Yeah. Well,
and
your website's going to be there as well. We'll have all the contact information for
yeah.
Gaby there. So you can feel free to reach out to her anytime, anytime. Well, Gaby, thank you so much for joining me today. I have loved this conversation. I have learned a few
You.
things and definitely got some ahas and little connections put together for myself. So thank you for that. Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. You're
All right.
welcome.
Well, thank you
Thank you for
everyone for
having
joining
me.
us. Yes, yes. I'm so glad you were able to join us today. And I think everyone would have learned a whole bunch. And if you know anyone who's going through perimenopause or menopause and this video could help or this podcast can help, please feel free to share it. The more people that hear and the more we talk about it, the better it is.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much for joining us today. We will be back again next week with another episode of Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for. So until then, have a really great day. We'll see you next week. Bye.